let's talk about pain. Not the kind of pain of realizing you forgot to summon Solaire before Ornstein Smough. No, I'm talking about FromSoftware level pain. Every Souls game has areas that are brilliant, majestic, terrifying, unforgettable. But then, every single one of these games also has at least one place for you. Just now Miyazaki sneezed on the design document and the dev team said, yup, ship it. So today, we're going through the absolute worst areas in every Souls game. Not just because they're difficult, but because of their flaws, their jank, their I never want to play this game again energy. And yes, I'm including Bloodborne, Sekiro and Elden Ring. Nobody's safe. But before we start, I have to address this. This video is partially my own opinion, but I went to Reddit posts, websites, and saw what the community thought about these areas too. So I tried my best to make this list for everyone. But still, if you don't agree with me, again, this is partially my own opinion. You can also address yours in the comment section. Again, starting off with the granddaddy, Demon Souls, the Swamp of Sorrow. If game design were a playlist, this would be the track that repeats the same chorus for 6 minutes and somehow forgets to write a bridge. At face value, the swamp works, rot, filth, despair. So why does it fail? Because the level design is a textbook case of visual monotony plus mechanical punishment equals player fatigue. Visual readability. The color palette is a single oppressive smear of brown and green. Landmarks are practically non-existent. Good level design gives the player little visual breadcrumbs, status, broken walls, uniquely colored planks, so the player can orientate themselves. Swamp of Sorrow gives you 3 identical piles of mud and asks you to feel mystery. Mechanical mismatch. The game's combat relies on precise timing, dodge windows, parry frames, stamina windows. The swamp strips those away. Movement is slowed, rolling is unresponsive, stamina regen is throttled. That means fights that normally test a skill instead test patience and calculation. You're not being asked to fight smart, you're being asked to wait smart. Enemy placement and pacing. Enemies are spaced in ways that turn encounters into micro-waiting rooms. Instead of combat waves with interesting spacing and flanking, you get slow, lonely engagements where the player's only option is to plod through. The risk-reward arithmetic is off. You spend 5 minutes surviving a trash mob and get an underwhelming payoff. Environmental storytelling that doesn't tell anything. One of the things that a swamp can do is to whisper lore, rotting ships, half-buried corpses, smashed banners. Swamp of Sorrow mostly whispers, you're tired. That's a missed opportunity. Atmosphere must serve both mood and navigation. Add vertical landmarks, a broken watchtower, a half-smuggered statue. To improve navigation, introduce pockets of solid ground with micro encounters that feel meaningful, like a ruined shrine with a lore item and a tough but fair enemy. Speed up movement slightly or give a temporary sprint item so traversal doesn't feel like paperwork. And use light-dark contrast to create readable lines of sight. Lost Izalith is the poster child for unrealized potential. The concept reads like epic volcanic city consumed by primordial chaos, but much of the actual space reads like copy-paste town meeting. Copy-paste trauma. There's a difference between repetition that's thematic and repetition that's lazy. Lost Izalith crosses the line into the latter. Huge swaths of the level feel like placeholder geometry. Enemies are often obviously reused or lack the animation polish to feel alive. Boss design and the Bed of Chaos issue. Bed of Chaos is not a cinematic finale so much as an insult to platforming. The damage triggers feel less like interactive mechanics and more like collision testing your patience. It's weird when the finale for a grand narrative doesn't feel climactic so much as procedural, pathing and navigation. The sense of place is broken. Instead of vertical or horizontal flow that takes you through the city's history, Lost Izalith is a scatter arenas and transitional zones. Players can't build a mental map. Every new area fails to build on the previous one. Design intentions. Speculation. It's possible the devs wanted chaos, chaos to feel disorientating, but design disorientation should be purposeful and narratively rewarding. Here it mostly leads to frustration. How to salvage it though? Replace repetitive dragon enemy placements with a few scripted, memorable encounters. Rework Bed of Chaos Arena to reward combat skill rather than platform roulette. Example, expose safe paths via player-triggered events rather than blind jumping. Add environmental hints, carved markers, scorched banners to suggest narrative progression.
It's beautiful here, it's coming down. I'm an untrained meteorologist reporting on the snow. I mean, it's in the streets. Damn!
Frigid Outskirts is famous for one reason. It turns navigation into roulette. Readability failure. Good snow levels use contrast, dark rocks, snow-dusted ruins, distant banners. Frigid Outskirts gives you a whiteout. I mean, what are you seeing in here? Even your character is hardly visible. The player's brain thrives on contrast. Remove that and you're left with blind wandering. This isn't mystery, it's disorientation without payoff. Enemy design vs visibility. The enemy's visual clarity matters as much as their attack patterns. Lighting reindeer are a rad idea, but when visibility is 0, the player can't react to telltale wind-up animations. If your telegraphed attack is invisible, you've failed at telegraphing the endurance loop. The zone is long, repetitive, and mechanically punishing without introducing new toys. That's like giving someone a chess problem where every piece moves the same way. It's endurance, not engagement. Psychology. Why players hate it. Humans hate uncertainty when it feels arbitrary. In combat, uncertainty that can be mitigated by a skill is okay. In Frigid Outskirts, the uncertainty is random and unavoidable. The brain labels that as unfair. Fix ideas. Add silhouette landmarks. Skeleton of a castle, carved stones visible through the storm to guide the player. Introduce weather windows where the storm eases to allow meaningful exploration bursts. Make reindeer attacks visually distinct even in snow. Unique sound cues, ground markers or something. Look at the best snow maps in other games. They give you 1 or 2 large, readable landmarks and then use fog to hide surprises, not the path. That's the difference between oh and The profaned capital has the lodges, ruined grandeur, twisted flame, but the actual playable space squanders it. Expectation vs reality. Your eyeballs are sold on a sprawling ruined metropolis, then you run around 5 ruined rooms and end up in a boss arena. That disparity is what knocks player out of immersion. A level can feel small and still be dense. This one just feels undercooked. Or they just didn't have the time to make it right. Disconnected set pieces. You'll see some interesting moments, an altar, a collapsed bridge, but they don't cohere into a narrative sequence. It's like watching location shots from a fantasy film but missing the scenes that explain why they matter. Redundant mechanics. The level leans on toxic, poisonish patches as filler. When a franchise uses the same swamp hook repeatedly, it needs new spins to stay interesting. Profaned capital mostly repeats. Design clue. Good capitals are layered. You can see the skyline, hear distant activity. Profaned capital gives you a skyline and then hides it behind walls. Remix ideas. Expand playable footprint to include more of the city. A market square, collapsed cathedral corridor, and rooftop alleys. Use vertical shortcuts to reward exploration. Ropeways, broken lifts. Tie the profaned flame into environmental puzzles. Extinguish, ignite pathways that open secret passages. This place is like buying a movie ticket to a blockbuster and getting a 20-minute short instead with ads. I hope you found this funny, because I'm really not funny. Like, I'm sour as pickled milk. Nightmare Frontier is a tonal mismatch. Bloodborne's elegance is in its gothic curves and vertical menace. This Frontier is flat sludge. Tone and pacing mismatch. Bloodborne shines when every rooftop and alley suggests a story. Nightmare Frontier suggests nothing, only slugging. The march through Poison Loop is fundamentally at odds with Bloodborne's twitch combat. Design laziness or deliberate grit? Maybe the devs wanted a hostile no man's land, but a hostile no man's land still benefits from curiosity hooks, ruined altars, half-buried notes, side challenges. Nightmare Frontiers rarely offers something interesting enough to justify the slog. Enemy and encounter issues. Trolls hurling boulders are fine once, but repeated in long corridors, it's kind of filler. Redeemable bits and fixes. Add vertical traversal routes, climbable cliff faces, or broken lifts to reintroduce the verticality Bloodborne does so well. Scatter unique lore pieces that reward exploration with small but interesting payoffs. A unique weapon shard, a short message from a doomed hunter. Rework the final boss approach so the level feels like a coherent build-up rather than an afterthought. Imagine walking into a bar that used to be grand. The bars are still there, but the music's gone. The lights are out, and the bartender keeps handing you soggy napkins. That's Nightmare Frontier. Sekiro's core is rhythm. Precision counters, posture punishes, the thrill of parries. The abandoned dungeons forgets that rhythm exists. Design mismatch. The rest of Sekiro's area teach you movement. The dungeon removes it. Poison tramps, cramped corridors, and awkward camera angles break the core loop. It's like putting a piano in a closet and then wondering why no one wants to play Chopin. The dungeon tone, it's grey, cramped, and forgettable. Where Sekiro excels at memorable hooks, distinct rooftops, unique enemy archetypes, the dungeon gives you tired enemies and little to discover. Enemy and mechanic mismatch. Sekiro's enemies usually promote posture play. Here, the enemies ask you to do something else. Avoid, backtrack, wade through. It's arguably the least Sekiro area in the game. Fixing it. Open sight lines where possible. Add vertical shafts that reward use of grappling hook. Give rooms distinct identities. A collapsed armory, a flooded crypt, an execution chamber, so players remember their path. Ordina is a great example of an area where strong atmosphere and poor mechanical choice clash spectacularly. This place is just annoying. Whenever I just want to go to Electri, I have to pass through this area and it's just miserably annoying. I just don't want to play this area. Puzzles vs gameplay conflict. Elden Ring is a roaming, exploratory experience. Ordina forces you into a localized puzzle loop. Light torches while avoiding or killing invisible assassins. Invisible enemies are a dangerous design choice because they kinda replace a skill with guessing, kinda. Flow breaker. Ordina interrupts the flow of the overworld. Instead of being a rewarding detour that adds depth, it's a speed bump. The biggest sin is when a famed open world movement becomes a chore. Invisible enemy problems. Invisible opponents, the assassins, remove the feedback loop between player and game. Players can't learn or adapt if they are being ambushed by something they can't sense until it's too late. That's frustration, not tension. Spatial confusion. Lots of similar looking rooftops and repeated building make the town feel like a modular playground instead of lived in place. You stroll, you ambush, you repeat. Possible improvements. Replace purely invisible assassins with shadow stalkers who become visible when close. But I know it's kinda related to Black Knight's assassin's law that they attack like this, but I don't care at this point because it's just not them that are annoying in this place. It's also the Albanarics. Integrate the torch puzzle into traversal. Lighting certain torches could reveal rooftop chains or open gates, tying puzzle progress to physical changes in the world. Add a few small, meaningful rewards in hidden corners. Rare ash, a unique incantation, or a NPC interaction. You can do all of those. An arena mechanics should reinforce the area's story. Ordina tells a story about sorcery and liturgy, but its mechanics focus on avoidance and tedium. Disconnected messages. Maybe the devs wanted to make players feel watched and vulnerable, and in vacuum that works. Okay, now that we've mourned and roasted, let's step back and look at the comment threads. Why do these levels fail? And what does that teach level designers and infuriated players? Common failure modes we just saw. Poor visual readability. Players should never be guessing where to go. Good design hands you breadcrumbs. Mechanical mismatch. If a level's hazards negate core combat mechanics, it will feel like a band-aid over the core loop. Unrewarding pacing. Long stretches without meaningful payoff are punished with player boredom. Repetition without purpose. Repeating the same enemy or texture is okay if it builds theme. It's not okay if it's laziness. Broken telegraphing. Enemies should telegraph in ways the player can read and react to. Design philosophy that work. Give the player readable landmarks and audio cues. Make hazards feel like tools for tension, not sledgehammers for annoyance. Use repetition to create motifs, not to fill time. Reward curiosity immediately. A small lore item or shortcut goes a long way. The balance between atmosphere and fairness. Atmosphere and challenges are partners. One loses value without the other. A spooky level that constantly feels unfair ruins the mood. Great levels are scary because they feel fair enough to keep trying. So that's a mega roast. Swamp of Sorrow, Lost Izalith, Frigid Outskirts, Profaned Capital, Nightmare Frontier, Abandoned Dungeons, and Ordina, if I'm saying his thing right. Each one teaches a different lesson in how not to design a world, either by punishing the core gameplay loop, raising readability, or offering boredom instead of discovery. But here's the nuance. These are not failure in isolation. FromSoftware makes levels that are among the best in gaming history. They also take risks. Sometimes the risk lands as genius, other times it lands as something that made you want to throw your controller into an actual moat. But which of these made you rage quit? Which one actually grew on you after a week? If you still love some of these areas despite the problems, that's also valid. Game design is weird and wonderful and sometimes infuriating. And that hot hate love is part of why we keep coming back. If you liked this video, please subscribe and like for more. Until next time, don't you dare go hollow.